Hello everyone. In File IO Part 3, I mentioned the with keyword and demonstrated its use when dealing with File IO operations. In this video, I'll show you how the with keyword works and how you can implement it in your own classes. The with keyword is used for handling unmanaged resources, especially those that have the potential to trigger exceptions like File IO, networking, subprocesses, and so on. This is because if an exception does occur, the with keyword will make sure the resource closes properly. So let's take a look at the with keyword in action with File IO. So in this example, I have two different file writing operations going on here. The first one we're going to do without using the with keyword, and in the second one we will use the with keyword. So what's going to happen here in the first part is that we're going to open a file out1.txt for writing, and we're going to write these 3 lines. Nothing crazy is going to happen or anything like that. It's going to be able to write those lines, no problem. And then down here, it's going to check to see if the file IO object is closed, which it's going to see it's not, and then it's going to close it, and then it'll say it's closed. And then in the second one here, we're going to use the with keyword to create a with code block. And I've demonstrated this before, but I'll explain it again. Basically, we start the statement using the with keyword, then we specify the class or the function that will return some kind of object that will be the target of the with statement, and then we specify its variable name using the as keyword here. So we're specifying that the text IO object we're going to get from the open function as fout2. And then under the code block, we can pretty much put everything we want in there, but we can also include stuff that will interact with our fout2 object here. And in this case, we're just writing more lines again, nothing different. And then when we leave the code block, once again, we're going to check to see if fout2 is closed. However, this time, we're just checking to see if it's closed. Up here, we check to see if it's not closed. Down here, we're checking to make sure it is closed. And then it's going to print out this statement here that it is in fact closed. At no point do we call the close method like we do up here. And that is because the with code block will make sure that it will close once we exit the with code block. So when I run this, and as you can see, we get both the messages that both file IO objects have been closed. The difference here though is that for this one, we had to close it ourselves, whereas this one was closed after we left the with statement. And then here are the two files that we wrote information to. They both say the same thing, but these are the files that we created and wrote information to using these two examples. The with keyword is not limited to just objects from Python. We can make our own custom classes work with this keyword as well. And there are 2 ways to do it. The first way is that they must have 2 magic methods defined, enter and exit. At the start of the block, the enter method is called. When we leave the block, whether by reaching the end or being forced out by an exception, the exit method is called. Most of the time that we give custom classes this functionality, it's to manage something that is inside of the object, like file IO or networking. And in this first example, we're going to be managing file IO for writing. I've created a class called custom writer. When we create a custom writer object, we just store a file name inside of it. It's specifically designed to just work with the with keyword. All it has is an enter and exit method. So in order to use it, we have to start a with statement like we do down here with custom writer, and inside I pass out1.txt as CW, and then we do all this stuff down here. So when we first start this code block here, the enter function is called. The enter function doesn't take any parameters, and it must return something. What it returns really depends on what you need it to do. It can return something for file IO, it can return something for networking. You can make it return whatever you want as long as it's something that is supposed to work with the with statement. So we print out a message saying that the with code block has started with this object. We then open up a file IO object using the file name we passed in here, and then we return the file IO object, which will get stored into CW with the as keyword. Then we proceed to write stuff to the file, and then at the end of the with code block, the exit function will be called. The exit function takes 2 parameters, self followed by args with the asterisk. That's important, it must have that. And the exit statement doesn't return anything. So you can just put in what you need to put in, and then that's it. And inside this function, I just have it print out the message that we left the code block, and then we close the file to ensure that whatever was written to the file gets saved to the file. So I'm going to run this file. Custom writer object has entered the with statement, which is from here. It then starts writing lines to the file. That's that message right there. And then custom writer object has left the with statement, which is right here. And just so you can see the output from this example, we got CW line 1, 2, and 3, just as we coded it to write it down here. And so that's the first way to create a class to work with the with keyword. The second way is to use something called a decorator. which is a topic that I'll get into more detail in another video. A good way to describe decorators is that they are function wrappers. They're technically functions themselves that are called behind the scenes whenever you call whatever function they might be decorating. They do some stuff before your function call and they'll do stuff after your function call, but more importantly, they will call your function for you. When you write your code to call your function. Python will make the decorator execute behind the scenes. But that's about as much as I'll get into it in this video. I'll go into more detail in another video. For the sake of this video, we're just going to talk about one decorator, and that's the Context Manager decorator. So to access the Context Manager decorator, we have to import it from context_lib. And to specify a decorator for a function or a class, you start with the @ symbol, and then you specify the name of the decorator. In this case, it's Context Manager. And in this case, we're putting it right above a function called openFile. Now, I don't really know what the Context Manager is doing behind the scenes, though I can sort of guess what it's doing based on how I had to write this function in order for it to work with Context Manager. Basically, what I think the Context Manager is doing is it's storing the openFile function as a generator inside of itself, because we're using the yield keyword here. I'll get more into detail about that in another video. In fact, that's probably going to be the next video because it's actually a really cool topic. But basically, a generator allows you to maintain a function running while also receiving values from it without it having to stop or start over. It's sort of like a return, but it doesn't stop the function. The function keeps going. So we are yielding our file IO object into the Context Manager, which in turn brings it out here for us to use in our with statement. And then once we finish our with statement, the Context Manager will return to this function call so that the function can then close the file. I know that's a bit confusing. I hope I phrased that okay. Like I said, I'll go into more detail about this in the next video because I'm going to talk about generators next time. It's sort of hard to talk about certain topics this late in the series without it overlapping with other stuff that I haven't talked about yet, and vice versa. So I apologize for that. This basically allows us to do the same thing without having to define enter and exit methods. And we just have to write it out like this. So it's going to work the exact same way. So if I run this, it says I wrote the files to the line. And if I open up the file, there are lines right here, like it says right there. Now, as I said before, even though we can get our classes to work with this keyword, it's usually because we need to manage something like file writing or networking from within the class, like in the examples I just demonstrated. But there are definitely other uses for this. One example is a third-party module called Rich. It's a really cool module. It makes your command line stuff look really cool and pretty, and it gives it some extra functionality. One functionality that it has that I really like is it provides a class for a progress bar object, which allows you to display progress bars inside the command line terminal. It's really cool. This class in particular is written to work with the with keyword. So there are definitely other ways to utilize this. And that's about it for the with keyword. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and if you did, then please hit the like button and leave a comment below to let me know what you think. And if you want to see more, head on over to Wayfair Coding Academy channel to check out my other content. And while you're there, subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on new stuff as it comes out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.